Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice, as we are about to get into our third series here on the main stage. Of course, as we will be going into that match. Which one is it? It's Harstem versus Lambo. That's the one. Awesome. So that's going to be coming up in just a little bit. Obviously, there's a lot of other series going on right now as well. But Harstem versus Lambo is...
Everything's under control, guys.
Oh, okay.
Doing the tasteless shuffle. I don't know what that was.
I had to get that cord behind me.
Guys.
Just in time.
Bly just beat TLO.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just to take away whatever you were about to say.
That's fine. That's fine.
Recover this. Bly took him out 2-1. So that means it's Bly versus Stats for a spot in the group stage.
Thank you very much, which is the other semi-final on the side of the winner's bracket. But the actual semi-final that we're going to cover is indeed Lambo versus Harstem.
Actually, we're going to cover both semifinals.
I think you're right.
Later down the line, yes. Are you just trying to throw the spanners at me?
This is posting on hard mode here.
I'm okay with that. All right, we're talking about Harstem versus Lambo. These two guys, obviously Lambo has just come through the bracket, beating Snoot out in a relatively convincing series. Did any of you guys see that down the line, or who
I was
here?
casting Dana stats.
You were
Yeah,
casting.
I was casting.
You were casting.
I was
He
eating.
was making coffee.
Brilliant. Okay, so Lambo versus Harstem. Harstem obviously beating Kashim in the previous round. Not quite as hard a road there, but what are we thinking when it comes to Harstem versus Lambo? This is a qualifying match, mind you. So who do you think is going to be taking this, and how do you think the dynamic's going to play between the two?
Look, I think Harstem, like, this guy has so much potential. Some might even say this could be his year going forward.
Wow.
He's got such good PvZ and so much stage experience that I definitely favor him. But Lambo, having taken out Snoot, everyone's been talking about Lambo for a long time, is one of these great European Zergs that just hasn't done it yet. So I do not want to count Lambo out here, but I think that everyone just has to look and say, okay, Harstem's favored.
I think Lambo definitely has a shot. If he's playing this well, I think it's certainly possible for him to beat Harstem, but I kind of got to echo what you said, Artosis. I think Harstem, he's one of these guys who's just a well-rounded player. He's got a good mindset going into a big tournament. I think he's very confident, and he's had a lot of success in the past.
If any year was the year of Harstem, I think that 2016 was probably it, with his victory over in China, and then I think he had... Did he have a victory in Home Story
You mean
Cup
so
as well?
far, or you mean he can't top it off?
That remains to be seen.
Putting you on the spot.
But overall, Todd, I mean, that was definitely his proper year. Now, in 2017, here at the Intel Extreme Masters, it's going to be a little bit harder, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. Like, especially like starting in a bracket like this, like you need to, from the absolute starts, basically begin on beating some good players to advance into the main tournament. So I think I would favor him against Lambo, but not as much as I favored DNS against Dana, and he lost that. So this could be close, in fact.
You know, it is another big question of stamina in a tournament like this. I mean, this is a marathon. Whoever comes out on top definitely was the best player that week. You have so many different matchups. To win a tournament like this, you got to be really prepared. But I think these guys are somewhat evenly matched, and that's going to be whoever does win this is going to have to be in pretty good condition later on, or they're probably going to burn out.
I mean, you were alluding to it earlier with Lambo actually taking that victory over Snoot, but is his ZVZ good enough? And then to move on, is his PvZ good enough to actually beat out someone like Harstem? Because overall, in 2016, Lambo was kind of quiet. Apart from the idea of him playing in like the Meisterschaft or something like that, there wasn't that much LAN presence from Lambo. So is this the tournament where he does have a little bit of a breakthrough? What do we think?
That's definitely possible, but I think Lambo, or from what I heard from the pro players in the past, he's been mostly known for his ZVT. That was very, very strong. Not particularly as much against Protoss, whereas Harstem, in the 1 year that was so far his year, he's beat a lot of good Zergs. He beat Snoot in multiple tournaments, and he's always put up good results, I would say, against Zergs in general. So, yeah, very heavily favoring Harstem there.
Well, you know, that's something we can say about both players, though. They've beaten Snoot, and as soon as you do that, we're looking at you very closely as a contender, right?
Yes,
and
definitely.
So, I don't know. Maybe today is his day, and we have to call him Lambo from now on.
Wow.
Lambo Calrissian, maybe, man. How far can we go? Thank God we're here, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would we do without the comic duo of Tasteless and Artosis? All right, well, aside from that, there's other matches going on in the lower bracket currently. We had 2 updates in terms of results, with Gauze taking 2-0 across Matrix, and then we had DNS taking a 2-0 against ZeroS. So overall, that's playing out. A lot of Polish players still down there. Now, though, Snoot is actually going up against DNS down there.
Oh, that's crazy.
That is sick, man.
Yes. So
Wow.
is there any potential upsets there with DNS playing so well in his first game? Oh, sorry, actually falling down, obviously.
Yeah.
But him having so much kind of presence, obviously beating a laser in the
I really feel like what's happened to DNS is what we've seen so many times of like a hype player that's playing really well online. He comes into an offline tournament, maybe doesn't warm up as much as he needed to, and then he just kind of bumps out in that first series and doesn't play as well as he usually does. So I think DNS definitely has the potential to beat anybody in this bracket, really. Maybe against Stats it will be pretty tough, but other than that, I would say it's on equal chances against most of these players. So yeah, against Snoot as well.
And Snoot can get emotional as well when he loses a match.
Yeah.
Like, for sure, he sometimes gets inside his own head. So if that's affecting him right now, you never know. DNS could put that upset out, and suddenly this is an open bracket. Anyone can get that 3rd place spot.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll be checking in with you later on with the array of laptops to find out what's going on in other matches. For now, though, we are heading over to the commentator team, as they are going to bring us Harstem and Lambo to find out who qualifies for the groups for the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice.
Thank you, James, and the guys over there on the desk. They're going to keep us updated, of course, with the array of laptops there. But right now, a qualifying match. Finally, people about to find out if they get through. How are you going, Roddy?
I'm excited, man. I mean, I always love guessing some Dutchies. You know, it's already going to be terribly biased from my side. No, just kidding. I think it's going to be a fun series. Lambo is a really fun Zerg, because for the longest time, I've really seen Lambo as one of the better Zergs in Europe, but he doesn't really have the results to back it up.
Yeah.
And I once upon a time discussed this with another pro, and the way he said it was maybe a little bit mean, but there was definitely some truth in it, because other pros said this as well. They're like, yeah, Lambo is very good. The only issue is that Lambo also thinks he's very good. And the better Lambo thinks he is, the more he often disappoints himself in tournaments. So maybe if he would lower the expectations a tiny bit, he can finally show what he's truly made of. And that's a very good Zerg. So it is very fun to see Lambo finally have a good run, and maybe he can go all the way here.
Well, he's going to need to do well, because standing in his path, a very experienced Dutch player down here in the bottom right-hand side of Newkirk Precinct, it is Harstem.
Introducing my Dutch Protoss. Pretending that we're not biased over here, Pig. Come on.
That's what I want to see from Kevin. When he gets in the zone, he's there, he's singing, he's got his rap music playing through his headset. That's what he's got to do to G himself up.
You say rap music, I say One Direction. Over here on the left bottom side, we're looking in the main base of our German Zerg. It is Lambo.
I was thinking maybe a bit of Taylor Swift. I don't know about One Direction. I don't know if he...
No, he used to love One Direction.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And maybe like 5 Seconds of Summer as well, Amnesia and like stuff like that. Kev gets real deep.
I love one of our oldest personalities in the scene. He's just such a funny guy. But Lambo here, I mean, you're talking about him being confident and sometimes overconfident. And I kind of agree with you. It's a bit of a blessing and a curse, right? Like sometimes it's great to be able to come in and say, I can beat anyone. This guy's a GSL champion. I don't care. Like, I think I can take him out. I've watched how he plays. But at the same time, he does take those losses very hard. But right now, this sort of run so far, he's picking up a bit of momentum. He just took out Snoot. And I feel like looking at his recent results, you know, he has a few nice wins in the last month over players like Drogo, players like Super, in online cups, to be fair, but still some very nice wins. And Showtime is really the only Protoss player that's been giving him a lot of trouble recently.
I mean, Lambo is truly one of those guys at the last 3, 4, 5 home story cups. You look at the round of 32 and you're like, I kind of expect Lambo to make it out of this group. And he just keeps going out in the round of 32, you know, whether he was the favorite or not. He just keeps going out. And we know that he's better than that. And now he's finally showing up that 2-0 victory over Snoot. That's a very big win, but it's all for nothing if he loses against Harstem here and then maybe loses against Snoot later on, or maybe against a TLO or Blythe. Depends who he would eventually go up against in that lower bracket. Now I just watched Harstem play his PvZ, or PvZ against Kashim. It looked good. Just multiple adepts, 6-7 adepts followed up by 2 oracles. That was kind of his strategy in both games. So he makes an attack without resonating glaives, but because you do it without resonating glaives, it hits just a tiny bit faster. It's kind of like this anti-timing that's really good because Zerg is not expecting units in that phase in the game. But it seems like he's going to switch things up over here, Pick, in his first game against Lambo.
I do like to see that because I feel like if you do the same build over and over, it can get a little bit predictable. We saw DNS also favoring that Oracle Adept pressure style, but here we do see a variation. We see the Twilight Council is down, double Adept production coming out of that 2-gate off the Nexus first. So far, Harstem just playing very comfortably, and it's all going to be down to Lambo stopping those first couple of waves of pressure. At the moment, he has no idea what sort of tech it is from the Protoss.
So if you have to make a prediction for this series, Pick, who are you leaning towards?
I definitely think Harstem is the one I kind of am lending towards, but both players have had tough times of late. It could go either way, and that was a very good scout. Yeah, we'll see that Twilight Council. That's really important because especially with these Nexus first Twilight builds, it's not like 6 or 7 Adepts. It's like 10, 11, 12 Adepts that will often be hitting you. So if you're not ready for that, you over-drone a little bit, things can get way out of control.
Yep. Immediately see the Baneling that's being thrown down. It's really funny because, you know, if you would have asked me 7-8 months ago what's the ideal way to defend against this, I would have said with full confidence, Roaches. You need Roaches against this because Lings and Banes, they just won't cut it. Right now, I actually think that most Brothers players prefer to go up against Roaches because Ling Bane is actually just, it's a little more economic for the Zerg to defend against, and it makes it just a lot harder. Obviously, this has a lot to do with the fact that Adepts don't see as much as they used to, and that makes it very possible to potentially have a very bad shade into a couple of Lings and Banes and get surrounded. But I definitely think after that nerf went through, Ling Bane is the way to defend against Adepts.
A lot of Zerg players loving Ling Bane, Ling Hydra in the mid game as well, so if you can skip those Roaches altogether, it's a great transition. Of course, something we've been seeing in Korea a little bit more to counteract these sort of builds is players mixing in a lot more force fields and that sort of thing very early on.
Could potentially go for a Baneling drop. I don't know if he has an Overlord here. Now he's just going to run a couple of Lings, wants to see if Harstem is going up to 3 bases, which indeed he is. I believe the Baneling count is pretty healthy on the other side, right? Let's take a look. 6, yeah, I actually think 6 is a very, very respectable number. Sometimes they try to do it with 3 or 4, but then if one of them gets sniped, then it's just not enough. This is a very risky move by Harstem. I kind of wonder what would have happened if the Lings would have tried to surround these Adepts and then the Banelings would just wiggle in. There's a good chance that Lambo would have been able to get a couple of pretty decent connections.
Both players tied neck and neck in the work account at this point. Forge is going down behind this for Harstem. Already does have that robotics finished. No units coming out of it just yet. There we go. Immortal production is starting up. Harstem really looking very macro-oriented right now and adding a few gateways to wall off his third base.
Now, Pick, if I see this opening, right, from a Zerg point of view, one thing that I would love to see, just one Drop-A-Lord. Try to go for it. Try to drop a couple of Banelings in the mineral line. I feel every game where Protoss does not have a Stargate, and obviously they don't have Blink Stalkers, I really think any sort of drop play from the Zerg is fantastic.
I got to agree with you. Definitely the ability to put that pressure on is very good. Right now, Lambo is starting to finally edge ahead in the workers a little bit, but Harstem coming in with a bit of pressure, looking to kill a couple of these drones off. Very nice Adept drop. Is going to focus down just a couple of workers and easily will pick up and get out of there. This is good pressure from Harstem, just keeping Lambo back, keeping the pressure on him. But most importantly, Harstem needs to figure out what's coming next. He doesn't realize that it's a Roach Warren, so we're probably going to be seeing Ravager, Zergling, Baneling here.
Good chance. Warprism taking more damage now, and the shields did not regenerate just yet, so he's gonna have to be a little bit careful there. I don't know, whenever I have games like this as a Protoss player, like this doesn't look bad for Harstem, obviously, right? Because it's even in the worker count, it's kind of even army supply, maybe even a little bit ahead. But I'm always kind of worried, because when I open up with this amount of Adepts, even though the sentry count is indeed very high, I kind of want to do some damage eventually. And other than those 3 drones, there just hasn't really been any damage dealt.
Especially with so many sentries warping in, he doesn't realize it's Ravagers. I mean, this is great against someone who's going Hydra Baneling, but if someone gets Ravagers out, they can really deal with those force fields very well. It's not like they're a completely wasted investment, but so many Adepts coming in here, Kevin. That's a huge investment. Ravagers and Baneling speed well on the way. These are all things which are going to do very well against this, but he's got to buy a little bit of time.
Yeah, 17 more Banelings are morphing, but it is indeed going to be hard to get on top of this army as well, because there are so many force fields available. A couple of force fields could get busted by these corrosive balls, but is that going to be enough? Will this Protoss army be safe? No, the Banes do connect.
Massive Baneling detonations on those Adepts. There's still a lot left alive, though. The sheer numbers here from Harstem seem to have caught Lambo by surprise. Work is starting to go down in that third base, but Harstem cannot lose his Immortals. He's got to keep that juicy core of his army alive. Those Immortals really represent the backbone. I actually wouldn't mind for him to just walk home right now. He's done so much damage.
Yeah, and he's got the Templar Archives finishing up as well, so he could potentially start researching Storm. And Storm is obviously fantastic against high number of Banelings. And there you go, Storm being researched immediately.
Nice pressure here, just making use of that War Prism for drone kills. Look at the worker count, 72 probes to 53 drones. Storm and +2 on the way. Harstem looking so comfortable. The only advantage Lambo has right now is that 4th base, but his +2 melee is really far away. Even though he's got a little bit of creep spread, he just doesn't have a great worker count. He's at the point where he really would want to be attacking Harstem and hitting him before Storm finishes, but instead he's just stuck redroning.
I think the worker count is a tiny bit deceiving, because you look at 76 workers and you think, oh my god, Protoss is so far ahead. But I mean, the main base is going to be mined out relatively soon. You can see only 9 workers can mine. And even in Natural, because this was a Nexus first, will not be fresh for that much longer. Obviously, there's quite a bit of money left, but it's very important that Harstem gets that 4th base up and running, and that's still going to take a while. So Lambo is not that far ahead, because right now he's really not being that outmined.
That's a really great way to trade off those adepts, just hiding a few adepts around the map, a few in the Warp Prism. Of course, they're going to be almost useless as a lot of Banelings with Baneling speed enter the fray. That's a crazy Ravager count. Yeah. Oh, man. There's not a lot of Banelings to back it up, though.
Where's the Storms? So, I mean, we have only 3 High Templars. I kind of expected a few more Storms to be available by now. If this Warp Prism gets sniped, that would be very painful. A couple of Photon Overcharges are dropped, but Corrosive Biles will take care of these pylons. This is a difficult horde for Harstem. It's doable, but very difficult.
There's not that many Banelings, but Ravager Ling is all you really need against the Blinkstalkers. There's no charge lots in here, not a lot of Adepts. Nice Storms landing on the Ravagers and the Banelings, but a good bunch of Corrosive Biles spreading across that Protoss army. The Sentry energy is almost all depleted at this point.
That Archon really doesn't do that much. Blink is about to finish up and +2 is about to finish up, but just 3 Immortals, a bunch of Adepts. I don't know if Harstem can defend here. If he does defend, he's going to be in a fantastic position with +2, and he's still doing some damage on the other side of the map. I love it. 2 Adepts should be able to take down 4 or 5 drones, but will he defend at home? Photon Overcharge doing obviously a really good job in buying as much time as possible.
And that's the aim of the game for Harstem right now. Buy time, hang on. He's got 4 bases mining. He's way up in workers. If he can just buy a few minutes, he's easily going to overwhelm Lambo. But right now, it's danger time. There's a lot of Ravagers, Zerglings, and Banelings coming forward. Those Immortals taking those Corrosive Biles. They're all exposed in the front. Nice blinkbacks from Harstem. But there's still a lot of Ravagers left over. Is it enough? I'm not sure. The Blinkstalkers, they might be able to counter Blink.
Yeah, these Ravagers are pretty exposed by now. Pretty much everything else died. All the Banes have disappeared, and there aren't that many Zerglings to support these Ravagers. And even though Ravagers do push out a lot of damage, if it's just Ravagers, then they can suddenly die very, very quickly. Look at this Mothership Core just chipping away at these Ravagers. Should be able to get a kill soon. Dark Shrine is on the way as well during all of this. Harstem seems very confident he's going to be able to defend this with flying colors.
Harstem only slightly down in army supply right now, but this is +2 Blinkstalkers. They're a very maneuverable and versatile unit. However, +2 melee is kicking in. The Zerglings rallying in and doing a good job, but the Ravagers are starting to fall, and those are very expensive. It's still neck and neck right now, but that Mothership Core still dealing damage from above. Adepts even warping in here. Immortals hopping in that War Prism, and Harstem wants to hunt down these Ravagers. He knows if he can get on top of those, this is over. Lambo will only be rallying Zerglings and Banelings behind that, trying to replenish his Ravagers, but his economy has been taking such a hit from that Adept pressure.
Yep, and Harstem never took any economic damage in this game. And now obviously the fact that this 4th base is up and running again, now you can truly see that he's mining so much more. First Dark Templar being warped in as well.
And he's still building probes, Kevin. Harstem's a madman. I don't know what he could possibly think he needs more probes for right now.
He's going for the Nathanius record. He's like, Nathanius did 99, I can do 100!
Harstem is in a great position right now. Not really rebuilding any High Templar for Storm. Of course, he hasn't really had the space to do that. Just looking to kind of defend with a meaty Blinkstalker Immortal Archon army, and now with DT, he's about to hit all the bases. Lambo, his economy's been hamstrung. He can't afford Spore Crawlers and Spines all over the place. He does have an Overseer on the south. He's got a few Zerglings up here.
So he will be... It's okay. It happens to all of us. It's like there's no way he has detection everywhere. Bam! Detection, rock solid. DTs didn't kill a unit. It's okay, Pick.
It's just something that happens. The moment you start casting StarCraft, you will always say it the moment that the opposite happens. But I mean, what is the path to victory here for Lambo, Kevin? He's got Zerglings and Ravagers. What else can he do?
I think you need to hope for a miraculous engagement. Obviously, I don't think you can tech out of it, right? There's a lot of people say, like, why wouldn't you go like Lurkers right now? Or maybe switch into Muda, but you just can't do that. You won't have time for it. You'll die before you have those units. Honestly, the best thing that Lambo can do is max out on the 60 drones he currently have and just hope for a miraculous engagement, you know, a Stefano-esque engagement where Banelings will just roll in from literally every single angle and hope you can connect with those High Templars before they be able to get that Grain Storms off. I mean, maybe Broodlords, but I really don't see Broodlord. I don't see Lambo ever having the time to get Broodlords out.
I got to agree with you there, Kevin. There's no Storm building up right now. I think there might be 1 or 2 High Templar, but that's about it. So Harstem's not really building that supremely efficient army. Okay, there we go. He has started to make those High Templar. So he's building a more efficient army, but with such a huge work account, it is going to be about those Storms. When it comes to a maxed out battle, yes, if Harstem pushes onto creep and gets surrounded, Lambo will just jump on top of that. The Storms won't be able to hit the way they need to. So Harstem does need to continue to play very patiently.
Yep, with +2 melee, I really think that the dream is still alive for Lambo. And obviously, if you look at the army supply, 141, some might even say that he should be the favorite in the battle. I don't think that's going to be the case. He did drop the Spire, by the way, and that Hive is halfway done. It's still a long way to go to Broodlord, so let's not get too excited if you have a Zerg heart. But if, once again, Harstem makes a minor mistake, if he overcommits, if he allows himself to get surrounded, then it's absolutely possible that Lambo will still steal this game.
Looking for position right now.
Oh my God.
Harstem is way out on the map. He is completely surrounded. There's not a lot of banklings there.
God.
The Storms on the Zerglings. 100 Zerglings disappear in an instant. The Immortals, the Archons press onto the Ravagers. And oh my gosh, that was brutal.
You know that achievement where you kill 40 units in a second? Harstem definitely just got that. He got it 3 times.
Oh my gosh, man. I think if there was like more banelings there and like Lambo was a bit more spread, it was his moment. You can't hate on him for trying to take that opportunity. It just didn't quite work out the way he saw it.
Absolutely not. And perhaps he thought fewer storms were available than there actually were. Maybe he looked at it as like, I might be able to drop 3 or 4 storms. And even though, you know, it looks easy, right? There's like some people out there, it's like, oh, Proto is so hard, you know, like press T and like just kill the entire army. But it's actually pretty hard. It can be very nerve-wracking when you see units come in from every angle. You're like, oh my God, like everybody is familiar with the panic disruptor shots or the panic storms, but Harstem actually dropping some super clutch storms and all the links that somehow survived. There's like 1 Archon there. Like, so yeah, that was cool.
It was a very fast-moving rainbow of Zergling hit point bars there. It was just like,
it's like green, orange, red. I was like, oh, they're all dead. GG. I love as well that Lambo immediately realized, like, all right, you know, that's it. Yeah, I've got a great Aspire or I've got a Spire on the way with a Hive, but I'm going to die before this.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, well, we are going to throw back over to the analysis desk quickly and take a look at some of the other matches. We'll be right back.
A lot of fun. What's also going to be fun is game number 2 between Lambo and Harstem here at the Intox 3 Masters Day 1. It's been a fun day so far. Nothing but PvZs on stream. But don't you worry, Terran brothers out there later today. There will be plenty of Terrans to watch for you guys. But for now, all eyes will be on this match, where we're looking at the main base of the Dutch Protoss. He's 1 map away from qualifying to the group stage. It's Harstem. The anticipation is building.
He's looking G'd. He's been having some hard times over the last 6 months, but looking good so far. Of course, he does have to make it through this guy, our German Zerg player. A player who hasn't had any huge results yet, but he's been on the rise. It is Lambo. Very confident player, but unfortunately not able to have that huge breakthrough. He had a bit of bad luck last year at Katowice 1 year ago. He had to play Polt in the first round, ended up going down 1-3. I know he was very upset about that result, but here he's got another shot. This year it's a very different format, and he's got a shot right now against Harstem. Of course,
they're trying to show us Nemo. They're looking for it. There's plenty of fish in the middle of the map.
There's a lot of fish on this map, yeah.
But if there was Nemo here, would you put him in the middle? No, you wouldn't.
You've got to hide him in a corner somewhere for sure.
Right middle, I'd say.
Also, because the middle is, it's kind of not a safe place for a child to grow up. There's a big shark floating above it and everything, so it's kind
of... But Nemo makes friends with sharks, right?
Oh yeah, after they try to eat his dad or something, right? I can't even remember. It's been a while since I watched Finding Nemo. But this map's really interesting, Kevin, because there's choke points everywhere. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And until you take down some of these rocks, a lot of the kind of ways to get to your opponent are very choked up. I personally don't really feel like it favors Protoss all that much or Zerg all that much. I really feel it just creates a very different style of game. Do you have any kind of idea about who you think it tends towards?
I think it's decent to go up to 3 bases, but I also think this can be a very annoying map to deal with, like Ling Bane run-bys. And there's one thing that we didn't see from Lambo, and I did mention it. I'd love to see him research Overlord speed and try to drop some Lings or try to drop Banelings. If there is no Stargate on the map, I really feel this is almost a must. It's incredibly annoying for Protoss players to defend against Lings or Banes, especially Lings in your main, because Lings are faster than any other Protoss unit. So it's not just that you have to make sure you clean it up before you take a lot of damage. It's hard to clean it up. You know, it's not something that you can just warp in one unit and it's going to take care of it. It doesn't work like that because the Lings are too fast, and a player like Lambo is too good to just A-move the Lings and let them die against the Zealot and a Adept. So I'd really love to see him implement that in his play.
Oh,
and I think if he does that, he's going to have a very good shot at maybe pulling Harstem out of position. But yeah, this is pretty interesting.
Old school pylon rush. I haven't seen this in forever, and I bet you Lambo hasn't either. Only now is he about to, actually he still doesn't even have vision. Only as the overcharge goes off does he actually get any idea this is happening. And what does he do? Does he just give the hatchery up? He has to make a snap judgment right now. He's making a Baneling nest and 8 Zerglings.
What if you just Baneling bust on the other side of the map now? If you force like 2 Photon overcharges here, which I think he's gonna need, so there you go. Now I would say you cancel the hatchery and you just Baneling bust on the other side of the map.
Thing is, he's going to be very short on lava, and there's 2 more gateways that both came down before 3 minutes. This is like the fastest 3-gate setup from Protoss you'll ever see, and he's non-stop making Adepts and Glaives. This is like rock solid against any counter aggression from Zerg.
I don't know. You haven't played enough NA ladder pick. He's not going to do it. As we see him, he's going to produce drones again. But obviously, this is going to hurt a lot. I would even say you may as well try to go up to 4 bases very quickly at this point, because he's going to be floating minerals. If you try to play Ling Bane of 2 bases, I mean, you will always float. You're going to float like crazy. He needs that 3rd hatchery. He needs that additional larva. Yeah,
I'm not sure Banelings is the right call if you're just going to macro up off this stage. Roaches being the more efficient unit, especially with Ravages. It's going to give you a little bit more flexibility, but Lambo is going to try and recover. He's making some Banelings and Zerglings. He needs to really cleanly shut down this Adept pressure to get back on his feet in this game. If Harstem can get a bunch of drone kills, trade out really well against the Banelings, and he's going to get a very strong foothold, and from there I can't see him really giving it up.
A couple of Lings being sent to the left top side of the map. These Adepts are just going to work on this hatchery for now. I don't think that link count is high enough to deny that Nexus from finishing up. Good cancel there, because if he would let that finish up, I mean, there is a Mothership Core here. He could drop a Photon overcharge, but he doesn't even really need to. 4 Links is just not enough. If you want to cancel a Nexus, you need to show up with at least 14 to 16 Links, especially if there's an Adept and a Mothership Core there. Rough start for Lambo. Losing that hatchery, I think, really hurt him.
Yeah, I love Harstem just mixing in this very old pressure, which no one really does anymore. And as a result, you know, Lambo wasn't watching for it. He stopped chasing the probe on the map very early because he knew the Adept would be joining up with it, and then just was completely blindsided by that. Now, Lambo's basically playing a standard game from way behind where he's used to being.
Tricky. I really wonder what would have happened if Lambo would have just flooded Lings and like used 4 or 5 Banes on the other side of the map, because you hit right before Warp Gate finishes up. And I think if he would have Baneling busted there, it would have been so hard. If you have no Photon overcharge, you just have no DPS at all. I truly wonder what would have happened. I'd love to resume it from replay. Let's do it for a pick daily.
Let's do it, Roddy. All right, man.
All right, pinky promise.
we can test our caster mechanics and
we're gonna
make vague conclusions that probably don't apply to these guys' skill level at all.
It's okay. We can do it for 30 seconds and then we fall apart, but it doesn't matter. I mean, Lambo is doing a decent job in recovering, but so far it's just not good enough. He's not done any economic damage. He's gonna lose a couple of drones. Shouldn't lose too many here, but at least 2 or 3, I'd say.
Oh, really good focus fire here from Harstem. He's gonna take down 6, 7 drones. Oh, wow.
That's beautiful. He's controlling both Adepts at the same time, and he's making sure that he doesn't overkill, so he was shooting 2 and 2 on each side. That was awesome, getting 7 drones there. I mean, Lambo just doesn't really have an answer against all of this. He has no Spire. I think the Hydralisk Den just finished up. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do believe so. So Hydra Baneling is going to be the tech of choice. No Roach Warren on the way. I'm not sure if Harstem went for many sentries this game, but if he did, that's going to be fantastic. Yeah, that's very nice for him. 4 sentries there, 6 sentries in total And that's going to give him a lot of power to just zone out the Banelings and Zerglings on the ground, pressure in, maybe snipe off a hatchery here or there.
Harstem is looking incredibly good right now to perhaps advance to the group stage of the Intel Extreme Masters. Would already secure himself $1,000, but of course he'd still be in the running for so much more. This game is not over yet, but so far he's doing pretty much everything right. We see a little bit of War Prism harassment in the natural, and at the same time the Sentries and Immortals are moving forward. However, on creep with this army, you always have to be incredibly careful against Hydras, because Hydras can be really powerful. The only issue is there's only 2 Hydras right now.
Once again, Harstem is over-probing a bit, going up above 70 probes without even having a 4th base on the way. So I've got to be critical of Harstem over-probing in all of his PvZs. This is a really big flaw, which will come back to bite him later on in the tournament if he keeps doing it.
You know what he also did there is he ran towards the 3rd. Well, I actually think if he runs towards the 4th, he gets an easy cancel there, right? With the amount of sentries he had. Did he scout that? Can we take a look at Harstem's vision?
I think he was a little bit unsure about where the 4th base was. Didn't want to come all the way around to the right. Didn't want to take the time to break the rocks down. But I agree with you, Kevin. I was thinking, man, if he's on top of that 4th base right now, it's getting cancelled for sure.
So that's nice for Lambo. He's kind of dodging a bullet there. There is Storm on the way. There are Immortals on the way as well. But the Hydra Den has morphed into a Lurker Den. And I always think this is interesting because for a long time, right, a lot of the Korean Protoses, they looked at Lurkers and they said like, well, you just make Immortals. A lot of Immortals. You get some Archons, a couple of Chargelds in Storm, and you kill Lurkers. And I think that's true up to 10, 11, maybe 12 Lurkers, but I think after that, I really think you need Disruptors. I think Disruptors is by far the best answer against an incredibly high Lurker count. Now, if we're not looking at like 12 plus Lurkers, I obviously do believe that you can clean it up with Immortals and Archons. But
you've got to keep in mind, it's only single Robo as well, so it's not even a lot of Immortals. So I agree with you, Kevin. And think about the choke points on this map. Those Lurkers are going to be able to find so many good positions. If you're the one attacking on this map, you can find really good angles. He's got to be careful with that. Yeah, so look, Lambo's splitting his army back, threatening the left. He's going to attack the right. And if he can get between 2 of Harstem's bases, Harstem will just fall apart.
I mean, he's going to be able to burrow these Lurkers on top of the Rampig. I mean, there is a cannon there, so that's kind of nice. And Storms might be able to do a lot of damage, but this is still really hard to attack into if you're Harstem. And Harstem will not do it. He's going to lose the Cybercore, maybe the Twilight Council. Great moves here by Lambo.
Very well played. Lingbane floods into the 4th and the natural at the same time. And Harstem's economy is getting shredded. He's being forced to engage on this. High Templar falling. He bruises the Lurkers, but he doesn't kill them yet. He's going to try and attack through the choke point, but that is doomed to fail. Everything is getting torn apart here. Lambo, using the architecture of Abyssal Reef, just crushes Harstem with one big attack.
Great moves there as well. You know, being active with Lings and Banelings on the left bottom side of the map, allowing these Lurkers to get in that great position here between that 2nd and 3rd base of the Protoss player. And Harstem, who was looking also good, is suddenly down 40-50 supply. And you can't get close to this amount of Lurkers. Incredibly well played by Lambo.
That's just an impossible position to engage into. High Templar walk in, get 1 or 2 nice storms, but they go down. The main and natural is forfeit. There goes all of Harstem's production. Meanwhile, Lambo reinforcing constantly off a 73 drone 4-base economy. He is just looking so good right now.
Yep. Photon Overcharge is alive, or is live in the main base. Is going to keep it a little bit safe for now. Hydras have to be a tiny bit careful, but I'm not sure where the Immortals are. They were a little bit out of position as well. A few force fields will go down, but look at all these Lurkers. GG, Lambo. Wow, after a pretty rough start in this game, who looked to be in a lot of trouble, turns it around and can still make it out of the winner bracket here in the group stage.
An impressive game there from Lambo, at least. An impressive maneuver, we should say, right? Because he was in a pretty bad position. Harstem was definitely in the driver's seat. But that is how you play Abyssal Reef. You find an angle, and a bit of an army supply lead, a bit of a worker supply lead doesn't mean anything. I'm
not even sure if Harstem scouted the Lurker Den. I really don't think he did. I know he sent out a couple of hallucinated Phoenixes, and right before Lambo made that great move with all those Lurkers while he was being active with the Lings, I actually wanted to see if, you know, if he saw the Hydra Den ever. I can't confirm it. I really don't think he saw the Lurker Den. I mean, I'm sure he knew about the Hydras because he saw them earlier. But yeah, that's a silly game. Harstem will look back at that game and be like, okay, I should have just never lost it. You know, Harstem is always very realistic about his own games as well. He will give you the most fair analysis, and he's like, if I cancel the 4th, that game is over. Like, I should never lose that game.
Even if he meets the army halfway across the map, if those Lurkers don't get in that position, Harstem can do whatever he wants. He can split half his army off to counterattack. He can just slow down the push, storm it. Every time the Lurkers move forward, the Immortals focus down. He can go into Disruptors. But I mean, the position, that little choke point, just watching Harstem's army there, and there's no good decision. Once you get in that position as Harstem, it's like maybe the best decision is grab your army and go across the map and try to base trade. But the Zerg's already in your main, your natural, and your fourth. You're going to lose either way. So.
Couldn't agree more. Let's take a look at the analysis desk to see what the boys are looking at over there.
Thank you very much, guys. All right, so we do have 3 series that are either concluded or currently going on at the moment. I can check in with some of the guys down here as well. So let's check with Artosis first. You were observing TLO versus Gauze game 2, correct?
Yes, that's right. It is over now, and
yes.
TLO picked it up 2-0. Gauze was trying to be very sneaky. He started off by denying an Overlord scout with an overcharge, right, and killed that Overlord off. Threw down his Twilight, and then completely walled on an Abyssal Reef. So he literally didn't even have a way out of his base. So TLO just played super defensive and stopped what turned out to be a 7-gate Adept Glaives all in.
Right.
And it never did any damage. TLO was on top of it. He knew something sneaky was going on, and yeah, it was really straightforward.
Yeah, okay. We'll save the best to last, obviously, down on the line here. But checking in with Todd now, we had Dana versus Elroy currently. Is it 1-1 at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. It is game 2 on Newkirk Precinct. I thought Dana was in a good position, much earlier third base, and it looked like he was doing well with production. But Elroy turned it around, got his own third base, and then he turned it into another Roach Ravager against Roach Ravager, and just got the better end of things with a nice supply lead.
All right. Thank you very much, Todd. Thank you very much. Let's checking in finally with Tasteless. You were on Snoot versus DNS game 2, correct?
Yep. Well, we are tied up 2-2. Snoot was trying to go for a bunch of counters back there, and eventually didn't pay off. It was a pretty basic game. Eventually DNS pushed Snoot and crushed him. So we're going to have to go to game 3.
All right. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, as we're getting almost ready for game number 3 here between Lambo and Harstem. So let's head on over to find out who is going to be victorious and who is going to be moving on to the group stage here for the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice.
Thank you guys there on the desk. The tournament is progressing. A lot of players' dreams are getting crushed a little bit. A lot of other players are starting to kind of finally realize them. And in the set we are in, both players are 1 game away from qualifying. Of course, whoever loses does go down to the losers bracket. They get the second chance. For anyone who's not familiar with that format, I mean, I think it's something you need in a tournament this big, right? Otherwise, just one little bit of bad bracket luck. You play against a guy who might make top 4 or top 8, and suddenly you're out in the round of 64.
But if you lose here in this round, then you still have to win 2 more best of 3s, and that's why it becomes pretty difficult. Because if you look at the players that are still alive, it could be a DNS, it could be Snoot, could also be Bly, could be TLO. So if you have to beat 2 of those guys in a row, it really becomes quite difficult. I spoke with Harstem at the beginning of the day, and I said, like, you know, looking at this bracket, I was like, it's pretty doable, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, absolutely. He's like, but I do feel I should just advance from the winner bracket. He said, because if I would somehow lose early on in the upper bracket, which didn't happen, but he's like beating multiple of, you know, some of those guys in a row, that's where I can get kind of scary. And, you know, he said dicey for fun. But he still has everything in his own hands. Game 3 against Lambo. We don't know what map it is going to be yet. But I think a couple of decent Protoss maps are left. Could be Proxima. You know, I don't think we've seen a single game on everybody's favorite map, Paladino, I believe it's called.
Yeah,
right?
Paladino.
God. What is? Oh, that's Proxima. Okay, that's definitely Harstem speak, right?
This is actually a different match. So we've just been getting a few shots of the other players. So yeah, we've got a bit of the rare Terran action there, rocking the Black Sabbath shirt. And yeah, of course, we're just kind of getting a look around the different player areas, seeing all the players. We can see the top of Elroy's head there.
This is such a cool studio, man. It's really awesome to see so many of the players all in the same place. Actually allows us to catch up on some of the other games as well. Oh, look at this. It's Elazer, one of the hometown heroes. Even if he's not from Katowice, that doesn't matter at all. Everybody that's Polish is a hometown hero.
He's going to be getting a lot of cheers. He wants to make it down to Spodek, right? Wants to make it there for that final day. And here we have Lambo, of course, young German player, and he really is a player whose skill does fluctuate a little bit due to studies. But whenever he's got any time off school, and even when he's in school, he's practicing hard. He's just grinding away games after games. And when he does have a rare opportunity to compete at a big event like this, he really gives it his all.
I love the new Liquid jerseys, and we can see Uthermal there in the back. He's rocking the pink one.
The pink one, I really like that one as well. Snoot seems to
I like the blue one though on Dario. It looks hella sexy.
It's the classic one. I think I like the outlandishness of the pink one. It looks a little bit just like, hey, it's different, you know, it's got a bit of flair.
I look at it and I think like, oh, that's really cool. It's different, but I'll take the blue one. Maybe I'm just not as manly as you, Pig.
Yeah, you gotta stand out. You already have so much personality. You don't need to stand out, Roddy. That's why you like the generic one.
I really don't think it's that generic though. Like it used to be like just blue and white when they only had one color, but now they also have a white jersey, which is all right. I think the pink one is cute, but I'd buy it for my wife, which I don't have. But if I would have a wife, and the blue one is like, yeah, that's me right there. I could rock it.
Of course, Team Liquid. I mean, it's it's a Dutch team as well, right? So
I have been begging for a jersey and a jacket for the last 3 years, and they just keep ignoring me. I mean, I love Victor, but God, what does a man have to do to get a jersey these days, Vic?
Well, this man over here, another Dutch Protoss who is currently teamless, but he has been showing he is still in fine form. It is Harstem.
And it's going to be played on Belgium Vestige, by the way. An interesting map. And it's really weird, but if I'm Protoss, I really prefer to spawn on the bottom side of this map. Have you ever heard of that, or do you think that's crazy?
That's interesting. Yeah, that actually makes sense. I think I prefer that as well, yeah.
Over here on the right bottom side, we're looking at the main base of the German Zerg. Would be an awesome achievement for him if he qualifies for the group stage. It's Lambo. Just suddenly think about this. Former teammates, obviously. For some reason we have not brought this up yet, but they used to both represent Invasion Esports. Unfortunately, wasn't the happy ending that everybody was hoping for, but I'm sure they're still good friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, here on Belshire, what I always think about is two things. One, the natural wall is very wide and a little bit exposed to certain attacks. Well, actually 3 points. Two, you can also have so many angles to drop Zerglings in the main base of Protoss, so Harstem is going to really need to look out for that. And the third point is once you hit that mid to late game, the bases get so spread apart and there's not a lot of places to expand to. So I feel like because these paths are so separate, if the Protoss player is on the back foot and just trying to turtle and barely defend a fourth, they're almost already dead. There's just no way to both defend your natural wall in and your fourth base at the same time. You need to be able to control the center of the map. If you can't control the center, you will always get out-positioned in this matchup.
I think this is a great Dark Templar map, by the way, because I think this is a relatively big map, and I think fort bases can be hard to secure as a Zerg player. If you have some sort of like quick access to Dark Templars, I really think that can make your life a little bit easier as a Protoss. And I often feel, I mean, everybody has a different outlook on this matchup, and it really comes down to whatever playstyle you're very comfortable with. And I wouldn't necessarily say that one is superior to the other. Yeah. That's kind of what I love actually about PvZ, that there are so many different styles that are actually completely legit and valid. But the way that I like to play is really try to slow down or temporarily deny the fort base. I always feel as long as you slow down the fort base of Zerg, life is pretty good. And I think this is a map where that's very doable. But if you don't get any damage done, and if you can slow down that fort base, then suddenly I feel like, oh my god, there is so much Zerg all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely something where if Harstem has shown that he is definitely focused on that. And in that last game where he didn't get the fourth cancel, even though he was in such a good position.
He should have, though. He should have
let it slip away.
I absolutely think he should have been able to cancel that fort. Maybe send out a hallucinated Phoenix, because he did have some sentries just to confirm where it is. And I understand that going through the rocks is not nice, but at the same time he was active with a Prism in the main, so he would have been able to buy some time regardless. And he did have 2 Immortals in the mix, and 2 Immortals hammer down rocks pretty quickly.
Yep.
We see the traditional Dark Shrine going down. It's not something that he's trying to hide. In the old days, we were like, oh my god, it got scouted. And that's where the audience would explode and everybody would applaud, like, woohoo, he saw the Dark Shrine. These days, with this opening, obviously, if you can keep it hidden, it's nice. But just the fact that it got scouted really is not that big of a deal.
It's going to be interesting to see how Lambo chooses to respond. Usually, a lot of the European players are favoring a very fast lair to get Overseer. And yeah, it looks like he will be doing that. Snoot, as well as some of the Korean players, just kind of say, no, I can just defend with Spores. And I'm going to really focus on droning very hard, having plenty of Roaches and Queens. But it looks like Lambo is just going to say, I'll build a few extra Queens, have Overseers, and we're going to see maybe just go for 1 or 2 Spore Crawlers, probably leave at least one of the bases bare.
I like at least to have 1 Spore. I think going for 0 Spores is incredibly greedy. It's not impossible to defend, because if you have an Overseer on top of the Warp Prism, then you know what's going on. But what would have happened if he warped in 2 Dark Templars in the middle of the map, spread them over 2 bases, and then fly the Warp Prism into the main? That's where you can just straight up lose the game if you don't have a single Spore. So I like to see Lambo at least getting 1 Spore.
This is a really fast couple of first DTs as well. Actually, I didn't realize Harstem's build very tight here. Rather than 4 DTs hitting at 5 minutes, hitting with 2 DTs at 4 minutes 30. But Lambo's Spore Crawler finished like 10 seconds before that got in there, so he knew exactly what he was up against.
power of the Dark Templars, though, is that it will allow you to go up to 3 bases very quickly. I mean, 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and that Nexus has already been wiped in a little while ago. So that's very solid for a Dutch Protoss. Nothing to feel too bad about. And once again, these Dark Templars are at least going to deny this 4th base a little bit. You know, I mean, he might not get a cancel, but he's making it a little bit harder for Lambo to just get it immediately. And that should be quite nice, and maybe he can get some damage done with the Archons.
Harstem does have a small worker lead right now.
Only of
the
2
Archons
gates?
are starting to rev on up. Yes, I believe it is.
Interesting.
So really cool adjustment. Base quite different from the 4-gate version that is normal. Here comes the first Archon pressure, but man, Lambo is over-prepared. Just pushes that away instantly, but good reaction from Harstem. No hull damage on the Warp Prism. It will regenerate those shields.
I understand that Dark Templars are not cheap, but I still like to see him get 1 DT and just put it in a whole position at the fort. Because
can't disagree with that. I mean, those little moves are just so irritating for the Zerg player to deal with, and any delay on that at this point, especially while the Zerg is preoccupied with Archons, say dropping in the main base, hunting down Overlords, this is really good. One thing, interestingly, Harstem didn't go for the early Observer, so he's not actually able to snipe off the creep tumors, and Lambo, if he keeps just paying attention to where the Archons are, he's going to be able to spread that creep really far by the time these units start coming across the map.
Things getting pretty tense over here. I like both of these guys, and it would be very awesome for both of them to secure those $1,000 and advance to the group stage. And you know it would be a pretty damn big deal. I also have full confidence that either of these two could still make it out of the lower bracket, but just getting the job done right now would be incredibly nice. And things are getting very, very close over here. Harstem is going for a big attack. Lambo is not totally ready, and these Ravages are morphing in a pretty risky position.
Yeah, where are the Queens? The Queen's a little bit late to the party here. He needs those to soak up damage up front as well as transfuse it on top of these Ravages. No Baneling Nest ready, so it's all about just Roaches, Ravages, and Queens right now. All the Queens have fallen. It's just Roaches and Ravages, and all of the units are starting to go down for Lambo. Harstem's push here just looking so powerful.
Really caught Lambo off guard. Those Ravages were just a little bit too late. The Queen's out of position, like you mentioned. 10 drones have already gone down. It's going to be really hard to kill the Prism. I'm not sure where that Prism is. Maybe the Queens were working on it. Nope. What are the... Wow.
This could just be it. Queens just went down. Having no Ravages pre-morph, no Banelings to deal with that clump of Adepts. Harstem here really just catching him by surprise. And Harstem actually still has a very impressive work account behind this. This is not all in. I mean, it needed to do damage.
Lambo knows it. I mean, he's getting very frustrated. You could see it there at his face. He knows he already took way too much damage. This Immortal is not dying. The Archon stayed alive for so incredibly long. And Adepts, they may not do so much damage, but they are very tanky. And they will protect that Immortal. Now the shields are regenerating again. I really think that this time Harstem has done it. He did an incredibly amount of damage. And Lambo, without a fort, without a turret, is in so much trouble.
I love the way Harstem just looks so calm when he's doing this push. He keeps going for the same sort of pattern in almost all of his games, and he's always building probes behind it. He's adding gases and upgrades. He's got that forge going with +1. He's got blink. He's now adding cannons. It's a very calm pressure, which he seems to just feel very, very confident in. And Lambo just built a few too many workers, and suddenly he's almost knocked out of this game.
He just didn't see the attack coming, or maybe he just didn't respect it that much. He perhaps thought that Harstem would just deny a little bit of creep and then shade the Adepts into the natural and try to kill a couple workers. But slowly Harstem just went all the way in. Now he's getting a Robo Bay as well, second robotics facility. And this is one of these games, once again, it's a big game for Lambo. If you win this one, you advance to the group stage. But you can see it at his player camera. He looks frustrated. He showed a couple of signs of frustration. If this was a ladder game, he would have been out, you know, a minute ago. But since it's a tournament game, you don't want to give up. You want to fight to the bitter end. But he knows that he's in a world of trouble.
Lurkaden is going to be the choice here to try and come back into this game. But with the Disruptor Bays already down, and of course, you know, the situation even worse than that previous game on Abyssal, Lambo really is hoping for Harstem to get way out of position and for him to have that dream setup with the Lurkers again. He needs to somehow just get in on top of Harstem's economy in one brutal sweep and hopefully find a way to overwhelm.
Is that observer speed? It is, right?
I think it is, yeah. Gravitic thrusters, maybe? Not 100% sure. Gravitic boosters.
You were close. I love that upgrade. It's super good. I mean, both that one and the Warp Prism speed upgrade are both incredibly good. It's just You need 4 bases to be able to justify
Look at these
it.
adepts going into the third base as well of Lambo. This is just such a cute little move. Right when Lambo wants to be putting the pressure on Harstem, he's going to start losing workers in the third base, having to deal with an adept drop in the main at the same time. Harstem just doing all these little pokes to put the pressure back on him, but his fourth base is being exposed. Lambo finds an opening. Those lurkers in between the bases, Harstem's just going to have to give up that fourth.
It's a lot of lurkers, but it's still so incredibly difficult to engage into disruptors.
He's going in. Big disruptor shots come in, and Lambo just taps on out there.
He knows. I mean, once the disruptors are out, he's just going to eat a couple of those big disruptor hits. He's going to lose units one by one, and obviously didn't have the economy to replace those units.
Yeah.
So congratulations to our Dutch Protoss Harstem for advancing to the group stage of the Intel Extreme Masters and already securing himself $1,000.
He looked really good doing it as well. He did drop that map there in the qualifying set, but even that one, it was his match to lose. So maybe a little bit of, you know, a shaky moment, but in the end, he comes through confidently. He looked like he was definitely in a different class, and Lambo's got to be a bit frustrated with that, but he's not out yet. He will go down to the losers bracket, but as you said, Kevin, he's got to win 2 matches down there to make it out.
And it's a tough lower bracket as well. I mean, obviously we can take a look at it soon with Kalaris and the boys at the analysis desk, but there's plenty of good players left in that one. I think that Lambo will look at this like, man, that was perhaps a missed opportunity. I could have done so much better, especially that last game on Belshire. I really think that one is going to sting a little.
Absolutely. Of course, we are going to see the conclusion of this group in the near future, guys. We're going to go to a very quick break, and we'll be right back with more IEM Katowice action.